Blonde hair and a silk-lined jacket? Must be a Felton. This is Tom Felton, better known as the one, the only, Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter series. But did you know that before Harry Potter, Tom was a borrower? Yep, he was then Lewis in Anna and the King, starring alongside Jodie Foster when he was 11 years old. So already, at a young age, he's shown that he could be quite the dynamic actor, which in a large part helped him with one of the most dynamic roles, Draco Malfoy, which he started when he was 13 years old. Allegedly, he was first considered for the role of Harry himself, but producers decided he would look much better as the bad guy, a role that he played for 10 years, till he was 23. That's a long ass time. After Harry Potter series, Felton decided it was time for him to stop his acting career. He then tried to start a career as a rapper slash singer. He even started a YouTube channel where he posted videos of his songs, but they didn't become very popular. I mean, this one in particular, was 7.5 million views, but nothing much came of it other than, oh my god, that is Draco Malfoy singing. After that, he returned to acting, and if I do say so myself, he found that quite successful. Draco was such a strong character played for such a long time, it's difficult to see Tom Felton and not think that's Draco Malfoy, that is, especially when he is in a film. The first 5 minutes of every film he is in is just a constant Draco Malfoy, Draco Malfoy, Draco Malfoy, that is Draco Malfoy. But he's a very talented actor, and it's not long before you kind of forget about all that and just see him as the character that he's playing. He's been in plenty of movies since Harry Potter, notably The Rise of the Planet of the Apes and A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, which I think was an absolutely good film, and he did absolutely a brilliant job in. Number 2 on our list, we have Jennette McCurdy. After having guest roles on a range of TV shows, Jennette landed the role of Sam in iCarly when she was 15 and continued playing that role until she was 21. She since has retired from acting, saying she wasn't actually interested in it and she did it to financially support her family. The actress explained that she quit after her mother died in 2013, partly because she initially didn't want to act anyway. Jennette said her mother introduced her to acting when she was 6 years old. Her family didn't have a lot of money, and she was the main breadwinner for her family by age 10 or 11. In 2020, she began performing her tragic comedy one-woman show called I'm Glad My Mum Died in Los Angeles. She hosts the podcast Empty Inside, where she has spoken about her horrible experiences playing past roles, saying, I quit a few years ago and I tried my hand at writing and directing. It's going great. I quit a few years ago because I initially didn't want to do it. She's also said, my experience with acting is, I'm so ashamed of the parts I've done in the past. I reset my career in a lot of ways. I feel so unfulfilled by the roles that I played, and I felt like it was the most cheesy, embarrassing thing. I did the shows that I was on from age 13 to 21, and by 15, I was already embarrassed. She continued, my friends at 15, they're not like, oh, cool, you're on this Nickelodeon show. It was embarrassing. In August 2022, she released her best-selling memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died, where she further detailed her difficult experiences growing up and being on Nickelodeon, where she also mentions about her mother discouraging her from befriending her iCarly co-star, Miranda Cosgrove, because she didn't believe in God, although they did end up being friends. So, she's quit acting and she's doing her own thing. She seems to be doing quite successfully. And if you ever look at like the story of people who run Nickelodeon and the kids and how they grow up, a lot of them do go on to really hate acting and to really hate Nickelodeon. There's some sketchy stuff happening there in the Nickelodeon studios that, we really need to look into. Number 3, we have Tatyana Ali. During the 1990s, Tatyana hit the scene starring as Ashley Banks in the popular sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. During the show's run, many viewers felt like they witnessed Tatyana blossom from a child star to a talented young lady. Even though we mainly know her from The Fresh Prince, she actually got her start on Sesame Street in 1984. After The Fresh Prince ended, Tatyana tried to make the move to movies, but found it difficult. It seemed as it was difficult for her to break away from the role Ashley Banks, or for anyone to see her for anyone else other than Ashley Banks. And so, she tried her hand at music instead, releasing her debut single, Daydreamin', in the summer of 1998. Her follow-up single, Boy You Knock Me Out, was released early in 1999 and boasted a feature from her former classmate, Will Smith. Did I say classmate? I meant former castmate, Will Smith. The song reached #1 on the UK R&B charts. She then released an album, Kiss the Sky, and seemingly stopped making music. For why? I don't know, maybe it was taking a little dip, or she just wasn't enjoying it no more. Sometimes people just stop enjoying things and stop doing it. That's okay too. In the years that followed, she continued to act, and although she was getting roles, nothing was quite as large as her role as Ashley Banks. In 2016, she married a man with probably the best name I've ever heard, Van Raspberry, who was an English professor at Stanford University, who she met on the online dating service eHarmony. The couple have 2 kids together, Edward, who was born just after they tied the knot, and Alejandro, who was born in 2020. She seems to be concentrating on being a mum right now. She's now 43 years old, this is what she looks like, and even though she's concentrating on being a mother, she will still speak at conferences on subjects of midwifery, reproductive health and maternity health, specifically that of black women. #4, we have Haley Joel Osment. Haley Joel is the child star best known for his role in Forrest Gump in 1994, but most famously, starring opposite Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense back in 1999. Now that was a spook. Gave me the right EBGBs, that one did. He was praised by his role in The Sixth Sense, and yet he seemingly disappeared after that. No one knows why, probably because when you looked at him, all you could think of was I See Dead People. I mean, he did a couple of other films after that, but then seemingly vanished. From what it seems, he just went to go on to live a normal childhood. He went to school, he was even taking parts in some school plays, and then he went to college, which all seemed to be pretty good going for him. No reporters following him, no scandal headlines, nothing like that, until 2006, when he hit the headlines. Mind the pun there, and you'll see why. He hit the headlines after he crashed his car, broke his rib, and faced a misdemeanor charge of driving under the influence. Haley was then put on a 3-year probation, sentenced to 60 hours rehabilitation, and paid a fine. He then enrolled in an experimental theatre course in New York University, saying he was attracted to New York because it's easy to blend in. Interestingly enough, at this time his younger sister was finding fame herself, starring in Hannah Montana and the Spy Kids movie. That right there, that's his sister. Since then, he seemingly returned to films, but with smaller budget indie movies, or as very small parts in movies like Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil. That right there, that is him. That's the Sixth Sense kid right there. Critics have drawn comparisons to his child acting days where he was working alongside some of the then biggest actors in some of the then biggest movies, and today where he's doing much smaller stuff. They compare it as a failure, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think he wanted to get away from the child acting and live somewhat of a normal life, which he did. Yes, he got a DUI, but he was an 18-year-old college kid, so that's pretty normal, really. Then, when he returned to acting, he did it in a way where he can still make money, do the things he wants to do, all whilst blending in, which seemingly is exactly what he wanted to do. So, props to him, he did what he wanted to do. #5, we have Melissa Joan Hart. Melissa has a very different story from the other actors on this list. Whereas others' most prominent roles was when they were child actors and then they got smaller roles, Melissa had smaller roles as a child, then scored her biggest role when she was 20, then she dropped off the grid. Her biggest role was starring as Sabrina in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Anyone else watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch every single week when they were a kid? Because I sure did. She was one of my first crushes. I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Sabrina. I love that show. I love that witch. The show ran from 1996 to 2003, so what has Melissa been up to in the 20 years since Sabrina the Teenage Witch ended? Well, she very much continued acting and even did a bit of reality TV. In 2009, she was on Dancing with the Stars. She lasted 6 weeks. That's pretty good. Check out those dance moves. Yeah, you go get it, Sabrina. Yeah. From 2010 to 2015, Melissa embraced her comedic chops alongside Joey Lawrence in the ABC family show Melissa and Joey, which I also watched a lot and loved, and she looks exactly the same really. She looks like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I never once thought, that's Sabrina. You know, I always had a soft spot for her in that. Never knew it was the same person. Isn't that crazy? But that's what she did. That was a great show. In addition to making that sitcom, Melissa also took on becoming a Christmas Hallmark veteran with films like Holiday in Handcuffs, The SantaCon, Broadcasting Christmas, A Very Merry Toy Store, A Very Nutty Christmas, Christmas Reservation, Dear Christmas, and Mistletoe in Montana. When asked what keeps her coming back to the holiday movie circuit, Hart told TV Insider, people at Christmas time want a happy ending. They want to know the girl gets the guy. It's hard to stray from what has worked for so many years. Many of Melissa's fans may not realise, but she actually directs and produces the majority of projects that she stars in. Heartbreak Films was founded in 1993 by Melissa and her mother, Paula Hart, a dynamic duo that's been behind everything from Sabrina Teenage Witch to Melissa and Joey, to even A Very Merry Toy Store. Currently, Melissa is thrilled to be spending more time directing and producing rather than acting. She's directed several episodes of iCarly, Young Sheldon, and The Goldbergs. Number 6, we have Jeff Cohen. At age 11, Jeff Cohen brought the world chunk in the beloved classic, which is The Goonies. This was his largest role and one of the only ones. His IMDb page is pretty slim, with Goonies being one of the few recognisable things. People just love Chunk in The Goonies. He was one of everyone's favourite characters. They loved his wit. But few realise how much of the character's personality was enhanced by Jeff. He was a natural, a great actor. However, as it usually does go, once he aged, he stopped getting roles. However, he still went on to make something of himself in his own right. He wasn't living off Goonies money. Instead, he generated wealth for himself. He attended law school, after which he started his own legal firm, working as an entertainment lawyer. He also published a book in 2015 entitled The Deal Maker's 10 Commandments, 10 Essential Tools for Business Forged in the Trenches of Hollywood. So he's just out there doing his own thing, not acting, and seemingly not having a problem with not acting. Number 7, we have Jonathan Lipnicki. Now here's a face most of us recognise, especially those who grew up in the 90s. You will remember this is Jonathan, the child star who quickly rose to fame after making his acting debut in the 1996 film Jerry Maguire. And that was his debut. That was his first role. His first ever role. It was a hit. After that, he went on to star in another big hit, Stuart Little. Remember Stuart Little? That was him. And the movie The Little Vampire, which a lot of people I speak to don't really remember, or they never watched it. But I was absolutely obsessed with it, mainly because I was obsessed with like monsters and vampires and that as a bit of a weird kid. But I love that film. Unlike other child actors on this list, whose parents usually are very controlling, Jonathan seems to have it good. He spoke in 2022 saying, my parents after every project would ask me if I wanted to continue doing it, and the answer was always yes. But as he grew older, Jonathan's childhood fame saw him bullied and labelled as a has-been as he tried to pursue a career in acting, which was a lot more difficult for him as he became an adult. Later, he would say, the great thing about being young, a kid, is there's this nice inherent childlike wonder. That's why a lot of kids you see are quite talented, and filters come in and you become nervous and the world comes into play. So for me, I went from just doing a natural thing to trying to be like my favourite actors. Jonathan decided to study acting, given he'd never learn how to act professionally. You know, Jerry Maguire, his first ever role, so he didn't have to ever study acting. So he went on to do that, but he was still struggling to find work. At 19, he walked into an audition where he was allegedly asked by a producer, "You used to be cute. What happened?" Which, although was devastating at the moment for him, he did turn into a 4-minute comedy short which is on YouTube. Despite the bullying and the constant has-been comments, he still loves acting and he's still pursuing it. Although he hasn't been in any major studio releases, he's been in a handful of smaller budget films, indie films, and in 2018, Jonathan tried his hand at reality TV when he appeared on the UK dating show Celebs Go Dating. He also keeps himself busy with a second passion, which is mixed martial arts, and has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His family is actually involved in MMA, and they own a MMA promotional company. And the now 32-year-old Jonathan looks like this. He spends a lot of his time helping train fighters and even has spent some time escorting Orthodox Jews to temple in the wake of anti-Semitic attacks across the US after an incident outside an LA restaurant where a group of Jewish men were attacked. Jonathan and his pal Remy set up groups outside synagogues to make sure worshippers could get in and from the temple safely. And last but not least, she's creepy and she's kooky, mysterious and spooky. I mean, come on. She's altogether ooky. It's Christina Ricci. Christina was just 9 years old when she scored her first feature film role in Mermaids, acting alongside Winona Ryder and Cher. Snap out of it. However, it's the following year when she starred as Wednesday Addams in the Addams Family movie that she became a cult classic icon, which she did the most fantastic job with. After which she starred in films such as Now and Then. However, she definitely suffered of the curse of both child acting and the curse of taking on a popular role. In that it's difficult to get roles once you grow up because no one wants to see your grown-up self, as well as the cult classic curse where if you do really well playing one role, people only ever see you play that role. People couldn't take Christina serious as an adult because we've seen her as a kid, and we sure as hell couldn't watch her in anything she did without thinking about Wednesday Addams or feeling slightly uncomfortable anytime she took a role without twin braids or without a snarky look on her face. Referring to the former, Christina did what many child stars do, Disney stars, Nickelodeon stars, what they all do when they grow up, and that's trying to push the envelope. Usually it involves getting caught up in scandals, whether it be purposely or not, or taking on more raunchy adult roles. Christina did the latter in buckets. She seemingly was so committed to shredding this cute child actor, kinda goofy, kinda quirky girl look, that she took on just about any role that had adult themes, whether it was a good film or a bad one. Unfortunately, this just ended up typecasting her as exactly that, a former child star who is now a raunchy bad movie star. Not only does she have those barriers, but she's also about 5 foot tall. I mean, she's closer to 5'1" than 5 foot, but basically, she's teeny tiny. So it's yet another aspect that potential casting agents have to consider when hiring her for a role. If that wasn't enough, another barrier, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, is that she clearly does not age. I mean, look at her. She's 42 years old in that photo. It's crazy. She damn near looks like a teenager. Well, almost. But basically, it puts her in a position where she's too old to play a teenager, but she's too young looking to play an older woman. So she was really struggling to find something that would be a hit. In 2014, she took a break from acting entirely and she focused on her personal life. She gave birth to a son called Freddie. This seemingly was a good thing for her, because once she returned to acting, just 1 year later, she had a clearer understanding of the role she wanted to take and the role she would be good in. Although nothing was a huge hit, she performed well in almost everything she did. As of today, she has now got a role as Miss Marilyn Thornhill, the teacher in Netflix's newest Tim Burton release, Wednesday. How about that, eh? Eh? That's her. You thought she looked familiar? The reason she looks familiar is because that is the original Wednesday. Oh well, not the original Wednesday, but that is the Wednesday that we know all so well. She's back in that film. And so far, I'm yet to finish the series. I got like 1 or 2 episodes left or something, but I think she's doing a fantastic job. Really doing a good job playing it. And most people don't even realise that that is the same person that was in Wednesday. That's Wednesday's teacher is Wednesday. It's crazy. But there we go. There are 8 former child actors who are just doing their own thing now, who we all knew, who we all loved, and maybe we don't know what they're doing today. That's what they're doing today. Living their own life, doing their own thing.